It's time for Second Half Now with Dr. Dan Critchett, a radio show for boomers and beyonders. Tools and tips for the life you want to live from now on.
This is Second Half Now. I am Operations Manager of KKPZ, Paul Van Sickle. Excited to have this new program here on our station for boomers and beyond. Dr. Dan Critchett is the host of Second Half Now. He's a preacher, teacher, author, and now radio host. And we are excited to have him on board as part of the KKPZ family. And he invited me here to help out for this very first show here on KKPZ. Dan, thank you so much for being a part of this team. And we're excited for the mission of this program and the ministry and the information you're going to be able to provide to our listeners.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Paul. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I thought it might be good at this first show to tell a little bit about how all this came about and what we're wanting to do, what we're hoping to accomplish with this show. So how we got here really is you and I met just a couple of months ago, and I had just turned into my publisher a book in a field that I have been involved with for quite a number of years, and that is the funeral industry. And so as a pastor, when I work with people who have experienced a death in the family and when I help them make decisions and walk them through the whole process, it has been a very healthy and healing thing for both the families and for myself to be able to do that. And so it occurred to me that a lot of these people need help. A lot of people need to make their arrangements ahead of time so the family isn't caught and shocked, when the death happens, and then they have to make all the decisions and all the arrangements and then, pay whatever the cost is. So over the years, I started making some notes that ended up kind of with a title in a book. It's called 10 Ways to Save Money on a Funeral Plan. Now, what I thought is now I've got a book that gives me an opportunity to help people in a lot of different ways. In fact, Paul, I'm showing it to you right now in the studio. The first copies were just delivered to my front porch
Congratulations.
Today. So, but it's not about the book. What happened was, Paul, when you and I met 2 months ago, I was fresh into the all of the beginning stages of this publishing, and I'm thinking now that I believe that I can help people in this regard. When you came and introduced the idea of a radio show, I thought, maybe there is a room for that, because I feel so certain that having some help at this phase and this stage of life, whether the death has already occurred or not, that is so helpful and healthy that maybe I could create a radio show, because you told me some of the time slots that were available and the pricing, and I'm thinking, well, maybe this is what I want to do. Maybe this is my next step. So I scheduled an appointment, came in to talk to you, Paul, and I presented the idea of a radio show primarily about the importance of planning ahead. And I was going to include financial planning and estate planning. And you were very gracious, not enthusiastic, I'll say, but you were gracious.
Contemplative?
Yes.
That was a good word for it.
And you said, yeah, we could do that. And so we kind of began with that and started to think a little bit more about, what could be done. As I started to think about a show like that, I'm thinking, it really could and maybe should be broader than that, because people in my generation, I'll just call us the baby boomers, and then there are those who are older, I call those the beyonders. So the boomers and beyonders, we have lots of things on our plate, lots of struggles and lots of celebrations and lots of things going on in our life. And maybe it's bigger than that. Maybe it's bigger than just taking care of protecting your family with your estate planning and your funeral planning. Maybe there's more. So that whole picture started to emerge to me, and it's bringing me back to a place where I have wanted to be actually for a long time. So it's kind of coming full circle, and this time on the radio. So what I mean by that specifically is when we turn 50, and I'm just going to use that as a number because it happens to be the youngest of the actual baby boom generation is turning 50 this year. And in fact, 10,000 American citizens will turn 50 today and every day. And so I'm well beyond that. I'm not in the Beyonders group. I'm still a boomer. But it occurs to me that 50 is, in our day of modern medicine and technology, maybe we can all think about living a healthy life to 100. So maybe we are about halfway. And I'm thinking about the sports analogy, thinking about when the Trailblazers or some team, I typically think of it as basketball or as football, when they go into the locker room at halftime, the coach is going to talk to the team. He's going to point out some specific things that need to be done better. He's going to give a pep talk. Maybe he's going to get a little excited in a certain way about his team. He might need to mix up the lineup a little bit, might need to introduce some new plans and some new plays. And he ultimately, in those few short minutes at halftime, encourages them to go out and finish strong for the second half. Whether the team is up in score or down in score, the second half is really where the game is won. And I've seen so many times the Blazers are and we know this as Portland people, they can have a very nice, comfortable lead at halftime and then blow it, in my words, and end up on the short end of the scoreboard. And or they can be behind and have a heroic effort and come back, and which they have done recently. So in thinking about that as a metaphor for life, all of us are in that situation. And as I talk to the listeners right now, I'm thinking, here you are, 50 or beyond, and you're in the second half, and maybe some things have happened in your life. Maybe you've made some choices, and maybe some things have gone well, and maybe some things have gone not so well. And maybe it's time for halftime. It's time for redirection. It's time for a new inspiration. Maybe you are an empty nester. Maybe you are making various kinds of decisions in your life about career or about retirement or about the various issues. And if you have an empty nest, perhaps you have grandkids. Maybe they're close by. Maybe they're scattered across the country. Who knows? But it seems to me that if we're going to be purposeful, Paul, as Christian people, as people who want to honor God, we really do need to take this second half very seriously, because none of us knows how much time we actually have. And some of us are in the third quarter, so to speak, and some of us are in the fourth quarter. But I'm hoping that everybody has some goals yet to accomplish, some hopes and some dreams and some things that they would like to do. And I'm hoping that they'll have the right kind of focus for that, and they'll have the right kind of tools to make that happen. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about, whether a person is still working, getting up and going to work, whatever that means, every day, or whether you're working for yourself, or whether you're retired or winding down, whatever the case might be. In the second half of life, we tend to have more discretionary time and more discretionary money, because if we're not raising kids, if we're not pressed with all of the requirements and responsibilities and joys of parenting with kids in the nest, in the home, then we do have the luxury of making different kinds of choices with our time and our money. So my urge to the listener then is to be careful and prayerful about what the second half holds, and to be purposeful so you can actually be productive, you can be fruitful and fulfilled in this second half. And that's really what this is all about, because I believe that a person who has faith in his heart and seeks to honor God and trust God for everything, he is a steward of that life. He or she is a steward of that life and is held responsible for how he or she lives that life and what actually takes place and what transpires and what happens. So to me, that's a very, very important part of this second half now. And I added the now because it's not just second half down the road sometimes. I mean, we're in the second half now. And maybe some are still in the locker room getting the cheer from the coach or the redirection. But most of us are on the court and on the field and figuring out how to plan things and how to carry things out for the rest of our lives, whatever that might be, and to be purposeful, to be productive, and so that we really can, and God blesses us and promises us a life that is fruitful and fulfilling if we will tend to certain details of our life and get those squared away. So that's what this program will hope to accomplish and to provide for the listeners.
And I did like that, the now. We debated whether or not to put the now at the end of that. And so often we plan without the thinking about the now, or we think about the now but never act on it right now.
Right.
So we wanted to make this a practical application program where you're going to hear tips, tools, and we're going to talk in a minute about some of the different things that we're going to be discussing on the show. But you're going to be able to take that practically and apply that to your life now, after the show, within that week. Get these things that you can really do without putting it off, because as you alluded to, Dan, we don't know if you can put these things off when you're in that second half. And I was really glad that Dan had this show idea specifically for this audience, because as you know, as you're listening, you more than likely are in the audience that we're reaching. Mm-hmm. We know that over half of our listeners are 50 or older. And then we added another 25-30% that in the next few years will be hitting that mark as 45 or older. And that's 75% of our audience that this is applicable to use the word again, right now. And then for people like me who are just a little bit further down the line, this is the things for my parents. So this affects everybody in your life. This is things that I can take as someone who's not in that age bracket and still go to my parents after listening to this and say, hey, do you have these things in place? Have you thought about this?
Right.
Have you done this? Because it's going to affect me whether or not they have these things in place.
Absolutely.
And then it puts that in my head that I need to make sure
you bet.
I have certain plans and measures in place as well. So again, it's second half now for a great purpose.
Having said what you just said, maybe you should do a program called First Half. How to get ready.
How to get ready. Yeah, we can tag team
half.
that. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's all about whatever the score is in your life, listener, whatever the score is now, whether you're up or whether you're down or whether the lead is big or small, whatever, there is a second half, and you can make the best of it. I want to tell you, Paul, about an experience I had a number of years ago that really rocked my world in a good way, because I've been in ministry for a long, long time. I mean, I started over 40 years ago, and I've loved almost every minute of it. Not quite, but almost. And along comes a pastor from Southern California by the name of Rick Warren, and he writes a book called The Purpose-Driven Life. Now, I like just the title of it because that's the way I want to live. I want to live on purpose. I want to live with a purpose, and I think that's very, very important. What happened, not only the book came out, but Saddleback Church also devised a way to have a campaign in a local church that would get everybody reading the book, and there's just 40 little chapters, little segments, subject by subject, topic by topic, and the campaign is called 40 Days of Purpose. I just love that because I like structure, I like intention, I like being able to fulfill something and actually do something and not just talk about it. So I can preach till I'm blue in the face, not that I've ever done that, but what I want is some takeaways, some take-home, some application. So the campaign called 40 Days of Purpose was very, very significant. And I had the opportunity to direct that in a church where I wasn't pastoring at the time. And several hundred people signed up to be in the home groups. And so I trained all the home group leaders, and I wrote all the curriculum for all the questions, and I was very, very involved with that. And as I read through the chapters in the book, I thought, boy, this really connects. This really makes a big difference for people out there in the pews, so to speak. I mean, I buy it, I get it, because I'm up in the pulpit and I'm at the meetings and I'm trying to get ministry happen and getting things to go well and to touch lives and to meet needs. But what really happened is I discovered something very significant, and that is, of the several hundred people that were involved in these home groups, as we got the reports back from the leaders and the hosts and also from the participants, I saw rising to the surface and really coming forth is a strong passion on the part of these churched people to make a difference, to care enough about something to give their life to. And I thought, that maybe mostly pastors and mostly professional ministry people, we're the ones that kind of had a corner on that, but not so. So what I learned is that so many of these people just really cared about something enough that they wanted to make a difference, but they just didn't know how. They didn't know where to start. They didn't know how to get things together. They didn't know what. But going through these 40 days, and we had like 7 home group sessions. The groups met every week, but the readings of the chapters were once a day, so 40 days of purpose. And I have to say, I was blessed beyond anything that I could have anticipated to see that these people, some of them I knew very well, that they wanted to make a difference and they wanted to do things right. And I just, see that as second half. There were younger people too, but people who now can really grab hold of a purpose for their life and have it in a biblical context, in a biblical setting, because we don't just chase off and try to do something good. Mm-hmm. We get it from the biblical mandate to honor God and to bless people. And what does that look like when you break it down into 40 bite-sized pieces? And it was really, really exciting. So the latest information that I have as of this week is that book, Purpose-Driven Life, sold over 30 million copies. At the time, it was the best-selling nonfiction hardback book of all time. And I was amazed at that. And then I'm thinking, why is that? Why are people of all kinds, of all places around the world, across the country, all ages, why are they picking up and reading a book called Purpose-Driven Life? Because I think everybody wants to have a life that's significant, wants to have a life that makes a difference, wants to have a life that is purposeful and fulfilling, and not just getting up and go through the routine and, come home from work and watch the news and have dinner and take a nap on the couch or whatever, and then go to bed and then get up and do it all over again. So it was very, very exciting for me to see that these people were really rising to wanting to make a difference, wanting to have a purpose, to live on purpose and live for a purpose. And to find out that 30 million, and I think there must be an update on the sales. I think it's more than that by now, but even still, it ranks way up there in terms of the most read or the most purchased nonfiction books in our country. So to segue from there, Paul, what I want to do is you and I have talked about the various categories that would be relevant for people of my age category, mm-hmm. from these boomers and beyonders. And the categories are going to be spoken to and spoken about by experts and by professionals and by people who are actively involved in those things, professionally or otherwise. Because I don't have the expertise in these fields, but I can bring them into the studio and I can talk with them and deliver this kind of valuable content to the listening audience. And so here it is at 5:30. It's drive time. It's every Monday. And so a person can just plan to tune in, whether maybe they're already home, maybe they're listening online, which I'll talk about in a little bit. That can be done as well. So these are the subject areas that you and I, Paul, have talked mm-hmm. about, and I think those are very relevant. The number one is home and family. So when a listener thinks, okay, well, what does that mean? Well, it means your relationships. It means your marriage. It means whatever's in the past, whatever you're currently dealing with. It has to do with kids and grandkids and the relationships that you are trying to keep alive, and how can you maximize those? How can you be a blessing to the people that you are in relationship with? And it could be things around the home, too. We might have people who talk about how to make a home a peaceful place. Might be the various kinds of tools that we'll need so that we can actually integrate those thoughts and those ideas for home and family. The second subject of the 5 is health and wellness. By the second half, we have made some decisions, and we've had some habits, and we've had some routines, and some of them are paying off for us, and some of them we wish we would have been doing it for a while. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of expertise in this area: how to live a healthy life, how to be strong so you can go long, how you can so your health doesn't become an obstacle to the purpose-driven life that you want to live. And so I think that's very significant. There's a lot to that, but just to create that wellness. So it is also good stewardship of the body and the mind that God has given us. And so we are the best servants and the best ministry people, the best passionate and purposeful people when our health and wellness are in good order. The third of the 5 categories is budget and finances. As with the previous ones, we've made some decisions or gotten into some habits that are paying off or not. So what can we do now? What should we do now? Do we have a pension? Do we have savings? Do we have investments? I can't speak to that because that's not my field, but I know people who are in that field, and they can give practical, real advice and information to people who want to know how to manage that very, very important part of life, that whole stewardship of the financial part of our life. The fourth of the 5 categories is heart and soul. This I'm thinking of, this I do know something about. This is the spiritual part of a person's life. And I do want to bring something to each show that speaks to the heart and soul of the person, the spiritual life. Because if we're not healthy spiritually, it's not likely we're going to be able to live a purposeful life. It's not likely we're going to be able to be fruitful and fulfilled. It's not likely that we're going to be able to honor God and bless people if our spiritual life either is in chaos or is adrift on the open sea or is being challenged by all kinds of things, in our life and in our culture. So heart and soul was going to be, that's where the pastor hat comes on, and I'll talk about that in the show. And then the 5th and final category is work and mission. So, and I kind of put those together. That was actually suggested to me by somebody else. And I think, how can you be the best representative of your Christian faith and the God that you know and trust? How can you be the best representative at work? Are there some things that you can be doing or should be doing to kind of create that special witness? It doesn't mean that you carry around a Bible all the time, that you're always telling people about Jesus. It just means, how can you be that best witness on the job? So, and then the mission, what is it? What is that you really care about? That I don't mean mission like going to the Philippines and living in a tent. I just mean, what is your mission in life?
Though it could be.
It could be.
Going to the Philippines, that could be part of it.
It could be. So what I have in mind here, Paul, as we kind of wrap things up here, each show I would like to take a little bite-sized piece from The Purpose-Driven Life. There are 40 chapters, so that's 40 shows. How about that?
It's almost a year for you. Well, once a week program, right. Sure.
But I want to bring that in a clear, crisp way so that people can hear it and understand it and integrate it into their thinking. And then I want to do another one, a segment called Who Said That? And the first one, I'm going to put it out here now, but I won't give the answer. But who said this? This is a Hollywood celebrity, actor, director, producer, and this is the quote: "Put your shoes way under the bed at night, so you got to get on your knees in the morning. While you're down there, thank God for grace and mercy and understanding." I'll give a couple of clues at the next show.
It doesn't sound like it's coming out of Hollywood.
I know,
so
it doesn't.
that's a great
Absolutely.
quote.
And you'll love this person. It's a person that everybody knows very well.
Okay.
But may not know that part of this person's life. So our plan is, after this session, so starting next week, we hope that we will have the first half, the first 30 minutes. That's the time slot that was available from 5:30 to 6. And then we'll bridge into the second half, which will be available online. So I'll give the web address here in a moment. And so the second half with the guests or with the additional clues for the Who Said That, or the other part, the other half of the show each week will be available online. So I'm encouraging the listeners, Paul, to say, let's build this show together. I want your ideas, listeners. I want your suggestions. I want to hear your needs, what you would like to hear about, and what would meet a need for you, what would fill a gap for you, things that you would like to, resources that you would like to have. And so the website is simply secondhalfnow.com. And I would like to encourage people to go on and to sign up on the opt-in form, because then we'll send program notes and reminders. Because since it's only once a week, Monday rolls around and whoops, I forgot. So we can send out those reminders at certain intervals, Sunday night or Monday sometime. So, but you have to go on and opt in. You have to sign up, just your first name and your email address, and those will be sent to you. We're working on actually delivering that by text message also. We're not quite there yet. But that's what will happen when you go to secondhalfnow.com. And also, when you get that reminder, you'll also get the notes for the upcoming program, who the guest is, what the topic is, and you'll have an opportunity to send in questions. And so we'll have those ahead of time, and then so we can address those questions on the show rather than a call-in. We'll have an email in or an opt-in. So it's really important to listeners to go to secondhalfnow.com and opt in to get those program reminders and notes.
That's great. Again, Dr. Dan Critchett, the host of Second Half Now, 5:30 to 6 p.m. here on KKPZ, 1330 The Truth on Monday evenings. And starting probably next week, they'll have an extra bonus half hour available on their website at secondhalfnow.com. And this is going to be such a great program for meeting your needs as a listener, as someone who's a baby boomer and beyond, to be able to have resources so you can live your best life, the second half, that you can start right now moving forward with the rest of your life. And the other thing that I liked that you talked about, Dan, was in with the 40 to Purpose, how everything came back to biblical, it was all biblical based. And that is the same with these experts, with these guests, with these show topics. So even I want people to remember that as we're talking about finances, as we're talking about estate planning, as we're talking about keeping yourself healthy, though we may not be directly referencing the Bible in a specific segment, Dan will be bringing that back around to say, this is the biblical reason why these topics are important.
Exactly.
And
right.
So this is going to be a fantastic resource on how to be a good steward in everything. And we use that with money mostly. But as you mentioned, health, being a steward of what we're given for our bodies, for our families, for those around us, for the the work and mission that we have. We need to learn to be good stewards. And you can do that in the second half of your life now. Dr. Dan Critchett, thank you for coming on board with KKPZ with Second Half Now, Mondays, 5:30 p.m. here on KKPZ. And the website, again, is secondhalfnow.com.